very disturbing story is Mr. Theophilus Enemali, who is a newspaper analyst, a public affairs commentator, and a patriotic Nigerian who loves to lend his thoughts to issues of national interest. A very good morning to you, Mr. Theophilus.
Good morning.
It's wonderful to have you in the studio.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, first things first, I'm not sure if you watched the interview that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, gave on Al Jazeera, where he, waddled his way through some certain questions thrown at him by the interviewer.
So basically, I think this is a very weighty allegation because when it comes to security issues, it's something that is highly sensitive. But for the past several years, close to 15 years that you have been seeing operations of the Boko Harams and other insurgent group, you realize that if there is no financing, they wouldn't be there till now.
Certainly.
The question is, who are those financing them? Because you begin to see that before he made that allegation, the Chief of Defense Staff, he was seeing some sophisticated deployment of weapons, and then at the end of the day, sometimes even the Nigerian military cannot even match some of these sophisticated weapons that the insurgents they have. That is why he's now calling on United Nations to please join us in probing the financiers.
Where the funding is coming from, and how are they being trained?
Yes, because at the end of the day, you realize that in as much as a lot of them are being surrendering and saying that they're no longer doing the terrorism and that sort of thing, the killings
have not stopped.
Attack has not stopped. Several times we have heard the government saying that they have technically defeated Boko Haram. Till today, it's good for us to question what it means to technically defeat insurgent group, because at the end of the day, one of the bans of progress in northern Nigeria, and which has also spread to other areas
parts of the country,
is this unrest situation. So how can the United Nations come in this plea, a kind of joint efforts to say that at the end of the day, we have peace? Because there are top people that are in the political space that have been fingered as financing terrorism. In
the past, well, we know the names that were mentioned. However, what you just pointed out now is a very critical point that the interviewer had asked General Christopher Musa when he said he wants the UN to come in. And he asked, by coming in, what do you mean? Now I pose it to you again. By coming in, by the UN coming into the situation, what does that mean?
Now, even in the same news related to security situation, we hear about beefing up security borders through electronic means. Because our borders are absolutely porous. Over 5,000 porous borders to the country. Every single day, people are coming into the country undocumented, especially from the neighboring countries like the Cameroon that they have been having,
or Niger, or even Chad,
or Benin Republic. So how can we ensure that the borders are being tightened? Remember, in 2019, the federal government approved 52 billion naira, to engage in kind of electronic surveillance of the borders. Has that stopped insurgency? Has that stopped, people coming into the country to maybe cause mayhem? But the question is, do we even know the real identity of this insurgent group? Sometimes you hear some persons saying that they are not even Nigerians, they are coming from other countries to cause mayhem in this. So it's good that there should be a kind of joint effort, not just the local group anymore, but the international community, because what Christopher Musa is suspecting is that the financiers seem to be big weight because they got some hard currency from those that surrendered. So if they are able to stash such a large amount of foreign currency, it means that financiers may not even be those that we are thinking about. But come to think of it again, there are many Nigerians who are having hard currencies in billions, in the country.
Well, there are many Nigerians who are certainly having hard currencies, but then this is just one of the possibilities that we are looking at. We are also not ruling out the international conspiracy that General Christopher Musa had cited in that interview. However, one major thing that has, I believe, bugged my mind and the minds of other Nigerians is how the Nigerian state has not been able to quell in totality an insurgency in one region of the country, which has been hottest in only one state in the nation for 16 years.
And that comes to the leadership that we have. and also
we have not had one leadership since the inception of Boko Haram.
Yes, but
it started off during the administration of Yaradua
back in 2008, right,
and then became more pronounced in 2009.
Right.
And about 16 years down the line, we are still hearing that Boko Haram members have attacked a military base. It's one of the strongest military bases in Borno, in Damboa. Killing 6 soldiers, even though the DHQ has come out to say that about 37 insurgents have died. But why should they be military casualty at this point, almost 2 decades down the line?
That tells you that the military, they are maybe grossly underfunded, or the weapons that they have are not sophisticated enough to match the terrorists. Otherwise, a lot of persons will even tell you that there are so many soldiers that have been killed but unreported. And at the end of the day, these are people that are paying the supreme price for the country. But it's good for us to ask very solid questions begging for answers.
And what are these questions?
And these questions are, because every successful administration will also point accusing fingers at some individuals who they may say are in the opposition party and are trying to ensure that their government fail. And one of the ways that you can destabilize the governance of any nation is by causing insecurity and that sort of thing. So I feel that there are some group of persons who are bent on ensuring that they fail because they could not get to power. Remember during the Buhari regime, where Buhari said that those waiting to destabilize and even eat the government money are much more than those who are doing so. So there seemed to be a kind of distrust from the opposition angle for those who are in the ruling government.
Now, Mr. Theophilus, right, let's take it one after the other. Boko Haram insurgency you cited started off in perhaps late or mid 2008,
right,
during the administration of the late President Umar Musa Yar'Adua.
Right.
As at the time when it started, what opposition do you think would have influenced the start of Boko Haram?
Because at that period, you will agree with me that the PDP was the major ruling party.
And then we had the AG, we had the NNPP and the rest.
Again, it's good for us to also realize that the start of it may not be something with political undertone. It may be a kind of indoctrination. And then the political forces will now use that as a tool.
And hijack it.
And hijack it as a tool to ensure that their own voices are heard. As I told you, this man cannot be your governor. This man cannot be your president. He cannot secure your life. So
as the case of Ali Modu Sharif in Borno?
Exactly. Why not get him out so that I can enter? And the way I can do so is by ensuring that you will not succeed. So all of these things are weighty allegations. But it's good for us to know that you took the job. You knew that you can't do it, and that is the primary responsibility of any responsible government,
yes,
to ensure that lives and property are secured.
Now let's go to the Punch newspaper. You mentioned something quite technical earlier when you said billions of naira had been earmarked for our e-border operations, a project that many would agree has failed woefully. We still have over 5,000 porous borders in the country. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper, and then we'll come back to have Mr. Theophilus react to this particular headline. Federal government 9 billion naira e-border project fails to stop bandits, illegal aliens. Illegal Niger, Cameroon immigrants infiltrate Jigawa, Taraba, others. Borders automated, insists Interior Minister. Are our borders really automated?
That's what.
Or is the minister lying to Nigerians?
That's what he claimed. Tunji Olubiji is one of the most. People will say he's doing very well.
He's doing very. Yeah. I mean, he's young and vibrant.
Yeah, young and vibrant.
Many people will not. Many people will not believe that he will say that our borders are automated when it is clear that our borders are not.
But if they are truly automated, why are we having numerous illegal aliens into the country that are undocumented? Where are they coming from? What are they coming to do? You know, this beg for answers, because a lot of time Nigerians will say, oh, Nigeria is not good enough, but people are trooping into our own country. And you should know that these countries where they are coming from, Chad and then Cameroon, they have a lot of unrest there as well. So how can we even ensure that, because you said there is a 24-hour surveillance, both land and airspace
and space,
yes, fully secured, that you cannot come into any part of Nigeria without having been checked properly? But that is not true. You know, you can even go through the backyard of Cameroon, then enter Calabar, and you're there.
I mean, you're going so far. Well, Calabar is there in Adamawa State.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you know Adamawa shares borders with Cameroon.
Yeah,
you could. There's literally a village, right, a Nigerian community right next to
you just
a
walk.
Cameroonian community that you just walk into,
away.
You know, you are in Nigeria from Cameroon, or you walk from Nigeria, you are in Cameroon. In places like the Mambila Plateau in Sardana local government area of Taraba State, the Bamenda Highlands stretches from Taraba all through into Cameroon. So it's almost considered as if it's one large expanse of land that is not divided by anything. Such borders, don't you think that perhaps these aliens that have been cited here on the Punch newspaper, or even bandits, could utilize such areas as a means of infiltrating into the country?
Of course they will, but I wouldn't suggest one of the most uncute suggestion of Donald Trump by building walls,
which is not possible for us at the moment,
Nigeria, because that is
because it will be yet another wastage of billions of naira.
If you build walls, Nigerians they want to come, they will still climb
or tear it down.
So who's going to be there? Exactly. So at the end of the day, I think it's very important for Nigerians to team up with the neighboring community, the government of those neighboring countries, so that there will be a joint effort. Why are people rushing into because you cannot do it alone by ensuring that you are closing your border. You must have the kind of intelligence gathering and joint effort with the neighboring countries.
That brings us to the question of ECOWAS and what is currently going on, where you know the three francophone countries that had some sort of relation to France pulled out of ECOWAS. Talking about Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. You know, having pulled out of the ECOWAS and also sharing borders with Nigeria in the case of Niger and Mali, I suppose. Now, with this sort of pullout, and with this sort of sword relationship between these countries and Nigeria, do you think this poses some sort of threat to us as a nation, if we are going to consider that partnership or collaboration that you cited, where they would have to help us to checkmate our borders from their end?
But you know, diplomatic ties are unending. No matter the kind of feud both countries may have, they cannot do without each other, especially when they are sharing borders. So it's part of the differences where the Mali government and the Niger government, they feel that Nigeria is so much support or using the tool of the ECOWAS to ensure that the kind of governance they want for their own country is being stopped. So I think it's good for Nigerian government to begin that conversation too. You know, but you know, we are the big brothers of Africa. We don't want to play small by reaching out to them and say, oh, help us to, you know, secure
the most populous African nation.
Yes, but you must face the reality of the time by ensuring that you cannot do it alone as a nation, especially when it comes to border security. There must be a kind of joint effort to ensure that those neighboring countries too, they have their own part to play. Why are there people running away from their own country and coming here? The same thing is what is happening even in the US with immigration talk that is unending, and we're having that to think about thousands of people. If you go to Lagos, for example, now, do you know how many people they leave Niger to Lagos every single day? Not coming as a visitors or a tourist, but coming to reside
in Lagos
and undocumented. And so when you have a large volume of people in a particular community where they do not have any opportunity to work, why would there not be crisis? Why would there not be security
crime and criminality all over the place?
And that is why many countries across the world, they beef up security to ensure that those who are coming to their country, at least they have some requisite knowledge that will boost the economy and contribute, not just, you know, insurgents. Is it Calabar also? There is asylum being built, or
IDP camps
being built, for people who are running away from Cameroon, especially those from the Anglophone region.
The Wharton region of Cameroon. Yeah.
And the other day I was watching them. They're already feeling at home, but they are already documented. We know those
that
kind
they
of
are
people
here.
that they are here, and then but this other, you don't know where they are. You cannot even trace them to anything. In some community or country, what you do when they can be visa on arrival, they can be a kind of express entry, especially when your life is being endangered, but you'll be taken to a particular refugee camp to ensure that you'll be taken care of until
now we keep talking about aliens or bandits infiltrating into the country, while also forgetting that within the nation itself we have uprisings, non-state actors who have heavy weaponry, sophisticated armory in their custody, also terrorizing and disturbing the peace of persons. Just still on the Punch newspaper, a writer story here say that tension rises as gunmen kill 18 in Imo communities. Before now, when you hear of insurgency and the rest, the first thing that comes to your mind is perhaps the northeastern part of the country, but no Adamawa, Yobe, Gombe, or now it has spread to other parts of the country.
Right.
Insurgency in the northeast, banditry and kidnapping in the northwest, unknown gunmen activities in the southeast and south. The list is endless.
I don't even know where that phrase
unknown gunmen,
that nomenclature came from. Unknown gunmen,
because at first it was IPOB, but then IPOB started refuting claims of such attacks. They will claim some attacks, while the ones unclaimed was tagged unknown gunmen.
IPOB members will tell you that they are fighting the right cause, that they do not have anything to be associated with the unknown gunmen and that sort of thing. But there are things that we need to address very critically in this country. When we talk about those carrying physical weapons to destroy or cause mayhem, do you know there are also invisible intellectual bandits? Those behind the scene, using that as a tool to ensure that their own voices are heard. These things are beyond what we see, because if there is nobody behind sponsoring, giving weapon, financing, this wouldn't have continued to now.
When you say intellectual bandits, what do you mean?
Intellectual bandits, I'm talking about those who are maybe using very uncouth dishonesty to ensure that they destabilize the government in power because they do not have access.
Are you talking about sabotage of state?
Exactly.
Let's go back to Damboa in Maiduguri.
All right.
Reports say, or from certain findings, that the attack that took place on that military camp in Damboa took place was launched about 15 kilometers from the point of attack. About 25 kilometers, I beg your pardon, from the place of attack. Now, it takes some level of sophistication, it takes some level of coordination to be able to coordinate a specific attack, a drone attack on a military base from 25 kilometers away.
The question is, how did they get such sophisticated gadgets?
I was going to throw that question at you.
Digitals. So you see, if there is no financing, because to have all those weapons, they are very expensive.
Extremely expensive.
Very, very expensive. In fact, some countries cannot even afford what some of the insurgent group they have to use in protecting their country. But we have people, the non-state actors, having access to that. How did they get them? How are those things shipping to the country? You sort of sound like the chief of defense staff when you start asking these questions. But my point is that the Nigerian military, in its fight against insurgency and in protecting the territory called Nigeria, has not lacked funding in any way. In the 2025 appropriation bill, I think about 5 trillion naira or so has been earmarked for defense within the country. That used to be almost an entire budget of Nigeria in the past. Did you say they don't lack funding in that area?
They don't lack funding in that area.
Many times the things that we see in the budgetary provision are usually more theoretical than the actuality of what we accrue to them.
Please break that down.
Because at the end, you realize that only was it not on the paper yesterday or today, where we are talking about less than or about 25% of the capital project implemented in the 2024, and we're already in 2025.
Yes.
And then we're talking about passing another budget. You know, and then we're going to have a backlog of uncompleted projects over and over again. So you realize that if proper budgetary defense, what have you done with the one allocated to you, properly broken down and defended, then we wouldn't have, because if you check very well, there are people that are in the corridors of power where they know that this particular amount of money allocated for this specific project is going to be audio.
Let's be honest with ourselves, Mr. Theophilus. Do you think that maybe, I know this is a fact, this is something that has been sung over and over again, reiterated time and again, that the fight against insurgency in Nigeria has become almost like a business for both the Nigerian military, for international NGOs, and for some local actors in terms of opposition? Do you think that maybe we are not really being honest and sincere with ourselves in the fight against insurgency in Nigeria?
The answer is yes. If there's honesty, we couldn't have been where we are today. In a country where we are not at war, we are talking about thousands being killed in a year because of some non-state actors. There is no honesty.
Since inception, about 400,000 people, or about 40,000 people or so have died.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact figure that Daily Trust put it at a particular point, but I know that it runs above 35,000 people killed within a space of few years. Not of natural causes, but because, you know, someone else does not want you to live. And this is why we continue to sound this thing.
Yes.
Because a time will come where people will no longer be able to take it anymore. And when that time comes, I hope that those in power, they will be able to fix the music. But we don't want that to come. We want the right thing to be done to ensure that people have their lives and their property properly secured. They'll be able to go to Northeast Nigeria, for example.
Yes.
You realize that the out-of-school children, the population is
numerous.
Yes, very, very numerous. There are some schools that have been closed down for the past 3 years because of the kind of insurgency activities taking place. There are some people that cannot even access their farmland anymore. Are you surprised why we have steady inflation, especially in terms of food prices?
Because this just reminds me of a recent statement by the Niger State governor, where he said he had asked farmers to halt going to their farms for now due to a bomb alert or a bomb threat that the government had been alerted about. Now, this is Niger, just a few kilometers away from the Federal Capital Territory, where the president is resident.
It is this same country where a governor in Zamfara State, Matawali, said that, well, I can no longer defend you. Defend yourself at a point. And then he became...
Who is Matawale now?
He became Minister of State for Defense. Somebody that claimed that he couldn't defend his own state. So the irony and the paradox of Nigeria's state
is one that boggles the mind.
Is beyond magic and miracle. And sometimes you start wondering, where are we even getting it wrong to this point? Someone that claimed that he couldn't defend his own state is now the Minister of State for Defense. And it's a justifiable position for him, because he claimed that, well, he
knows how to handle banditry, he knows how to handle terrorism better than anybody else.
Do we follow antecedents in our appointments? Do we follow the kind of amazing record someone has, put out before we say, okay, yes, we have seen the successful successes that you have recorded, so this is why we are saying, okay, come and mind this. But no, it appears like a kind of compensation for the political class.
Yes.
And as long as we continue to place compensation of political class over and above competence, there is going to be a problem. Because see, no nation is built in a way where only a few persons are having access to it. A few days ago, the president was giving an analogy. He said he met his friend who was driving Rolls Royce, five Rolls
Royce cars
5 years ago. Then only a few months ago, he met the guy and he said he saw him driving Honda car. And I said, what happened? He said, this is where you have put us. And the president said, you must learn how to manage. Does this really not mean that the person in charge is out of touch with reality?
We don't want to say that the president's comments are not entirely correct or true.
Oh, you should learn how to manage by retrogressing so much.
That is what the president is implying.
You know, so it's good for us to even call a spade and not a spoon. It means that, see, there are many things that need to be put in place. The economy is in dire situation. Many Nigerians are running away from the country. Many people, especially our best brains, you know, and at the end, when this continues like this, a time will come where you're not going to have qualified doctors anymore, experts, you know, professionals. They're looking for better life, not necessarily for money,
for greener pastures and better systems that work.
Exactly,
and all of that.
Not necessarily for money, but for a kind of professional satisfaction that an environment can provide you. That is not here. Go to America, for example, and you see that the number of Nigerians that are professionals doing very well is more than every other. Now,
Mr. Theophilus, let me get you to react. We might, move away a little bit from the issue of insecurity and now delve into our economic woes as a nation and how, the non-implementation of our budgetary allocations have sort of impacted the nation and what Nigerians are expecting of the government. Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper and then we'll come back to get Mr. Theophilus' take on this. On the Nation newspaper, federal lawmakers seek more funding for 2024 capital projects. This is a statement that you had just made a short while ago. Let me go to the strap line on the Nation. Capital releases to MDAs are major drivers of economy. Now, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, says there are warrants awaiting payment. This is 2024 capital projects we're talking about. And yet, we are looking at the end of January 2025 for a passage of the 2025 appropriation bill.
More often than not, we always have supplementary budgets towards the end of the year. And then at the end of the day, you realize that there's going to be a kind of, more funding, because they will tell you that when this budgetary provision was made, the cost of social materials was this, but now because of the reality of the economic situation, we have to supplement it. Review upward, the cost of it, and that is what they're asking. But you should also keep in mind as well that even 2023 projects, some of them are still uncompleted. 2022, some are still uncompleted. How long shall we continue to have the same music? You cannot do the same thing all the time and expect different results. We see there's a whole lot of growing insincerity in those that are in the corridor of power, and no country can move where people are so dishonest in terms of how the governance of the country is being run. Look at all the federal roads, for example. We have the coastal
the Lagos Calabar coastal highway.
That is a huge project, a huge investment, and that sort of thing. I wouldn't say it is a white elephant project, but there are some critical projects that may be more people oriented than some of these
now
things.
One of the questions that many people had asked at the time when that project was announced, in as much as there were some people who were for the project, give a green light, for the project. Others were questioning why we had to have such fresh projects when we have so many dilapidated federal roads, abandoned, deserted, almost what we all know as death traps. Nigerian roads are death traps, and it is not just hearsay. You travel on Nigerian roads, I travel on Nigerian roads, we know what our federal roads look like.
So, you now ask, how long is this project going to run? I can't remember exactly, but I know it's going to run no less than 5 years, running to billions of, and at first you're going to compensate those who are living within the coastal region, because you are going to evacuate them. Now the question is, where are we going to start from? Is it from Calabar or the Lagos Axis? And that sort of thing. So at the end, you see people fingering certain individuals Well, this project is awarded to someone who is somehow related to the person who is in control of power.
The Minister of Works, Engineer Dave Umahi, who was governor of Ebonyi State,
right.
I will say is quite infamous for awarding of contracts to himself by proxy.
Well, I don't have facts.
Well, not directly.
He's an engineer.
He's an engineer, not directly to himself, but to companies or construction companies that are indirectly linked to him.
I've witnessed his supervision at a point in time. I went to a place, I can't remember the particular company that was executing the road construction, and he was frowning on the kind of bad job they were doing. I also went to another place where he praised indigenous construction companies for doing well, and at that extent he awarded another contract to that indigenous company for performing beyond expectation and that sort of thing. Maybe, just maybe, I don't know whether there are links to him having all of those things, but maybe that is a way to boost the indigenous companies. A couple of weeks ago we hear about some road construction being given to Julius Berger, revoked by the government, and then they have their reasons,
especially in the FCT here.
In the FCT, in fact, Wike was very, very famous about the way he ended one of the contract or collected one of the land allocated to Julius Berger after a dinner he had with the MD. And then the following day, the MD saw that, well, it was on the paper that their land has been revoked. And he called the FCT minister. We had dinner yesterday, and you didn't tell me that you're going to revoke my land. I said, yes, that was a dinner. We didn't mention your land be revoked. And so sometimes you need people who will go out of the way, whether they're going to step on toes or not, because if you don't step on certain toes, you wouldn't get things done. If you want to be the angelic leadership,
the darling of the people,
no, it's not going to work. There are areas where you just have to ensure that, I know these are difficult decisions, these are hard decisions, the consequences may be on some persons for the meantime, but in the long run, everybody will reap the benefit of it. So when we come into that point where we can make decisions that are unsentimental, then we are on the right track.
Well, in making decisions that are unsentimental, maybe a little bit unrelated, we might digress a bit, but it's also in line with the government making promises and not fulfilling them. On the front cover of the Guardian newspaper, which comes up in just a short while now, we'll take a look at that headlining story on the Guardian, which has to do with a free cesarean section that the federal government had promised pregnant women in the country via the Ministry of Health. Anxiety as execution of federal government's free cesarean section initiative stalls. Data of potential beneficiaries, facilities, store planning and rollout. Initiative to cost federal government between 200,000 naira and 300,000 naira per person. Pregnant women, care workers unaware of modalities. Is this yet another white elephant project, as you would call it?
This is a well-intentioned project. In fact, you will agree with me that one of the ministers that seem to be doing very well is the Minister for Health and Social Welfare. I think that is joined together now. I don't know. But
that's Professor
Alipate. But at the end of it, you see, what are the modalities to ensure that the right people are even given this free cesarean session? What government facilities we do this? Is it only for primary healthcare center, which of course I don't think they even engage in cesarean session, or the secondary or tertiary healthcare centers? But at the end of the day, if only one individual is going to have a cost between 250 to 300,000 naira per cesarean session, and you know how many children are being given birth to in Nigeria, for example, that's going to be capital intensive. But again, it's something that is a worthy emulation. Go to some countries. The first 5 years of a child being born, especially in the US, for example, there's a kind of nutritional supplement
that's being
given
provided
to the parents
for free.
Yes, for free. In as much as just register for the antenatal, you're already captured, and then you'll be taken care of. Why can't we have such policies? I remember the NetFord. Sometimes NetFord, a student loan scheme and that sort of thing. Some person frowned at it, but there are some of these wonderful projects that are actually intended to help those that are very vulnerable in the society.
Yeah.
There are many persons that died because they could not afford this Caesarean section.
And they didn't have any health care.
Yes, any health care. And again, you even have so much ignorance surrounding, childbirth, especially in rural communities where they don't even have, even semi-skilled midwives. At the end, you realize that the person will just suffer and die for things that are things that are very treatable. So I think it's a welcome development, and I hope that the proper modality will be put in place to ensure that there is proper data capturing, and it should extend to all nook and crannies of the country, especially rural communities where they do not have access to medical facilities. And this will
now Mr. Theophilus, we'll try to run through, because we have just about 10 minutes or so to wrap up the conversation. Turning our focus on something else that I believe you'll be very interested to touch on. The Economic Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has just days after sacking 27 officers, detained 10 others for alleged theft of things like gold and other exhibits in the custody of EFCC. Now, many persons, as just like one of the headline story here says, EFCC versus EFCC. What are we looking at?
When you put a thief in charge of protecting a yam,
or a goat in charge of protecting yam,
what will happen? The goat is going to eat the yam.
Certainly.
There are so many persons that are, as I'm talking to you now, they are restless because they know that it's no longer business as usual
for them.
But again, I hope that beyond just fishing them out, there will be properly, there should be proper prosecution of these persons. Because a lot of persons have told us behind the scene that the reason why corruption continues to fester in the country is because those who are in charge of ending corruption are the chief executive of the corrupt practices. And you start wondering when they will tell you that, okay, yes, so amount has been, alleged to have stolen so amount, how much will you bring so that we will close this case and that sort of thing. It's happening, and we do hope that this will continue so that the bad eggs in the EFCC will be fished out. I wouldn't say that there are no good persons there, but at the end of the day, remember, that reminds me of a book written by Ogozi Kojewala titled "Fighting Corruption is Dangerous."
It's dangerous, yes.
Where is what is this name again?
Bauer.
Yes.
I mean, he has been relegated to the sidelines. Sent back to KB State, perhaps.
Okay, I don't even know. There was a time he was.
That was on the lighter note.
Yeah, there was a time he was in detention for several months.
Yes. Due to his rigorous and vigorous fight against corruption.
It means that there are certain people in high places that once you finger them, you have already put yourself in trouble. And it's good for us to continue to ensure that people who are in charge of this kind of sensitive position are not those that will be moved by certain amount of money.
Yes.
Because when somebody is going, you know why people enjoy corrupt practices very much?
Well, I certainly don't. I wouldn't say I'm corrupt.
yeah. I'm not telling you from experience. Okay. I'm telling you from what I have seen because I am not.
I believe you, Theophilus. Carry on.
Because there is a kind of correlation between taking the things that you don't need.
Yes.
And stashing them and mental illness,
which is kleptomania.
Yes, because why are you stealing billions of naira that you're not going to use for your lifetime? Primitive accumulation of wealth. And I keep wondering, because in this same FCT, over 752 houses, estate linked to, I don't know why FCC has not revealed the name of the person that is behind those duplexes.
Duplexes, yeah.
Why? So it means that someone has such amount of money to build 752 duplexes at a time concurrently going on. Those are billions of naira.
Do you remember when certain states in the country had dragged EFCC to court, citing its legality or questioning its legality? At some point, these states started withdrawing from the case one after the other, and it's almost as if the case in court
in Benue State, Governor Alia of Benue State,
yes,
almost suspended the Attorney General for joining that case of
That bandwagon.
yes, exactly. Because if you are questioning the legality of EFCC, it means that you have skeleton in your cupboard.
Exactly.
You know, at the end, the EFCC, they have a lot of work to do, and you have to, they have to ensure that their own hands are very clean, because he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. You are accusing people of diversion of fund, misapplication and misappropriation of fund, yet you are being fingered to be, engaged in same thing
that you are
exactly that you are crying foul over. So where are we going to have progress? You see, this country, let's call a spade a spade. We need a kind of a complete reorientation, a mind shift, so that if people are sincerely doing what is right in their own little space, regardless of whoever is watching them or not, then progress will come. But we find ourselves in a place where people are easily taking advantage of each other. It's not just about the government, it's about our collective culture and the kind of behavior that we put on in this country.
Yes.
A lot of persons, they only criticize when you give them a little position. You see how they will even misbehave, and you start wondering, is there anything wrong with our behavior in terms of managing a fund that is not ours and that sort of thing?
Well, interesting times that we live in, but many persons have argued that this move by the EFCC, just consecutive days, sacking 27, detaining 10 persons, bringing to a total number of about 37 of officers, under the radar of EFCC is a means of purging the system.
Right.
Has the system been polarized to the point where it needs purging? And could this have been the reason why at some point those states decided to drag EFCC to court, and not necessarily because they have skeletons in their cupboard?
The purging and the cleansing of EFCC is even long overdue. It ought to have happened even before now, but we do hope that this one will yield positive results, because when there is a kind of people behind the scene aiding and abetting corruption, there are even people that have been prosecuted, taken to Kuje prison at the end.
Yes.
You will hear stories that these people are not truly even in the prison, that in the night they go out to have some fun and enjoy themselves in the comfort of their hotel rooms, and that was why the Minister of Interior, Tujojo, had to even launch an investigation, especially in the case with Bob Risky and all of that, where people claim that, well, in as much as some persons, they have been charged and then prosecuted, found guilty, taken to the prison.
They don't really stay in the prison to serve out their sentence.
And he swung into action by suspending several of the officers within the Ministry of Interior. So those are both steps to ensure that things are put in proper order. So I also commend the bravery of the EFCC chair for ensuring that within a space of 4 days, close to 37 persons have been suspended, and the investigation is ongoing. And I hope that at the end of the day, they will face the full wrath of the law if found guilty of all the allegations.
Now, just with 5 minutes to go, let me get your take still on EFCC, but from a different angle now. MFLA. I'm aware you remember is the legal battles, legal wars that have continued to persist with a recent court okaying EFCC's $4.5 billion and 2.8 billion naira fraud case. To carry on.
The case of Emefiele, some persons have described Emefiele as an excellent example of how not to be a CBN governor.
Exactly.
Because when it comes to issue of exchange rate and then money being given in such ways, the allegations against him, they were very weighty, including terrorism financing.
He was the longest serving CBN governor and the most flawed, many would argue.
Right. Yes.
Why do you think he stayed in power at the helm of affairs of Nigeria's Apex Bank for so long, even though he wasn't doing well?
For 9 years. Some of the policies that he even made it looked like something that was a trial and error, policies that are often flawed, sometimes somersaulting and that sort of thing. A typical example is the Naira redesign and that sort of thing that
which caused the cash crunch.
Exactly. So I don't even know why anytime he goes to court, he has Bible under his armpit. Is that
while wearing a jalabia?
Yes, is that to show that he is vindicating himself?
Many people will say it's a double factor authentication from all angles to shield himself, to gain the sympathy of both religions.
The Federal High Court in Lagos yesterday said that because there was a case they said they do not have the legal backing to prosecute such case, but the go-ahead has been given. So we do hope that at the end of the day, people who are ensuring that they bring this country to the lowest point, we actually face the wrath of the law. Because if there is no punishment for wrong actions, the same thing will continue over and over again. And that is why we are where we are. In fact, the way Nigerians even glorify corrupt officers, you start wondering. They will tell you, is it the first person that stole government money? You people should leave him alone, So you start questioning the kind of culture that we have, the kind of impunity and love that we have for people who are somehow, some way, draining us.
As the case of Yahaya Bello's alleged 110 billion naira, fraud case, where he went back to his hometown and he was welcomed with such a big parade and celebration and all of that.
Yes.
I mean, it's alleged. It's still a case in court.
It's still a case, the same way. Yes, his own is alleged. But James Sibori, the former governor of Delta State, when he returned after his sojourn in UK prison, he was given heroes welcome. What kind of culture is that?
The Nigerian culture.
I'll keep it at that.
Well, I must thank you so much, Mr. Theophilus. It's been wonderful having this conversation with you. Quite a robust discussion, and thank you for coming on.
It's my pleasure. God bless you.